Hey guys, it's Josh with Cardinal Offroad, and today I'm going to show you how to install Ruff Stuff's lower mounts for coilovers on the Dana 60. Now these go up on top of the knuckle, and I'll get to the reason why I'm doing that, but there's also a couple things you need to know as well. There's also going to be some items you're going to need because we're welding to cast steel, so you're going to need some sort of heat. I'm going to try one of these propane torches out. I've never used one of these, so give that a try. You're going to need some way of knowing what temperature you're getting your cast in your part at. For this installation, it has one bolt to get it lined up, so you're going to need a ratchet with a socket or some type of wrench. You're also going to need an axle and a welder. And then some sort of way to cool it down slow. Now I'm going to use a welding blanket and I'm just going to wrap the axle up. If you're able to, you can also use sand, but in this in this way it's going to be a little bit harder, so I'm just going to use a welding blanket. You can also use some insulation or something like that to wrap around the axle. So now that we have that out of the way, I want to go ahead and go over what you need to know when installing something on top of the knuckle like this. So when you're installing on top of the knuckle, you're raising it from where it would be on the axle tube itself, which is where a lot of people will mount these coilovers. I want to mount it on top of the knuckle just to get it out of the way, and also it's going to take that coilover and push it to the outside of the axle more. So it's going to give me more of a taper in and kind of give me a little bit more space away from the frame and stuff. So, but the only downfall, and it's not really that big a downfall, but when you're putting it on top of the knuckle, there's a good chance you're going to have to protrude that through the hood. So you need to be ready for that if this is the route you want to go. Now if you run 12-inch coilovers in the front, you may get away with it. It just really depends on where your bump stop's going to be set at and how far down you're going to be. With running low center of gravity, obviously my TJ's sitting a lot lower. I'm not going to have that much up travel. I'm honestly thinking about 3 to 4 inches in the front. So obviously with that being said, my Jeep's sitting lower, which means everything else is going to be a little bit higher. So it's not that big a deal. Obviously you have to cut the hood, and that's a little scary, but if you take your time it won't be too horrible. So I'm going to kind of show you, I got a picture drawn, looks like a 5-year-old did it, but it'll kind of give you an idea of what I mean by mounting on top of the knuckle versus mounting it on the axle tube itself. Alright, so here's my awesome drawing that I did, but it's going to give you the idea of what I mean. So there's your front Dana 60, it's obviously a Jeep. Now there's obviously a couple different ways of mounting these coilovers. So, and you got to kind of look at this as this mounted behind the axle. So you're looking at the front of the Jeep, but this mount is behind the axle tube, not in front. So if you mount it on the back of the axle tube, like this one here, you'll bring it up and then you'll do your shock tower or your hoop or whatever you want to do. No issues there. And I actually kind of messed this drawing up over here. Okay. Then if you go to this side, which is what I'm doing, it's on the knuckle itself. And if you look at the Ford Super Duty axles where your coil spring was mounted to in the front, you take that coil spring mount off, it's got a bolt on there. That is where we're mounting this mount right here. So this is actually going to mount on top of that knuckle, and then your coilover will mount inside there. And it's got this bolt hole, which is going to go inside of the bolt hole on the Ford Super Duty axle. Now, like I said, when doing this, you're raising it up a lot compared to in the middle of the axle tube. But what this is going to get you is your coilover is going to be out of the way, and it's also going to give you a way to mount that coilover a little bit further out. So your axle tube kind of goes like that on both sides, and then you have your cast part right here. So you're not going to be able to mount that coilover mount on the axle tube any further out than right here. So it's going to get further out, and then you can kind of get away from everything, your frame and stuff there. But like I said, it's going to protrude through the hood. I'm running 14s in the front. If I did 12s, it'd be really close. I think I'd still have to go through the hood a little bit, but not as much. So now that you understand the differences, we're going to go ahead and mount these up on the Jeep axle. So the first thing I want to do is go ahead and put some weld in there. And the reason I want to do that is because when those are down, it's going to be kind of hard to get weld on that bottom plate. And the reason it's like this is because when they make this out of one piece of metal, They cut it all up, laser out, whatever, and then it's folded into place. So I'm just going to run a bead here and a bead here, and then we'll be able to mount these to the axle itself. So the first thing I want to do is go ahead and mount these. Now I went ahead and cleaned the surface, mainly because I had primer all over from after I cleaned the axle off before. So when you get these, you're going to have a left hand side and a right hand side. Well, actually, now that I look at it, it would probably work on either side. But you want to have this little taper towards the knuckle itself. And when you put it on there, you'll know because it's only going to fit one way and look right. Then it comes with the hardware, it comes with a bolt and a lock washer. So we're going to go ahead and start that. Now this makes it really nice because you don't have to worry about getting this in the wrong spot. It's got the taper that follows the knuckle, and with putting the bolt in there, you know this is going to be the correct way on both sides. Okay, I'm going to go and do the other side and we'll be ready to heat it up. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and heat this area up. Now I'm going to heat the metal itself and the cast steel. So we'll just go all the way around. It shouldn't take really long because it's a small area. We'll heat it up to about 400 degrees. Once it's at 400, and obviously you need something to check it. So, right now we're at 41 degrees. Once it is heated up to 400 degrees, I'm going to weld it. And then once I'm done welding, I'll heat it back up to 400 degrees if it isn't already close. And then I'm going to take my welding blanket and just wrap this area up to let it cool slow. Now I'm going to go and do a post heat. Now we just want to go and wrap this up. Okay, we got both sides done. Now we'll just sit and wait. I'm going to let this set for probably 2 hours. I think it'll be cool by then, especially with just using the welding blanket. Now I've seen some people use some insulation to wrap it as well, but I think this will be perfectly fine, especially since it's not a huge area. The biggest thing is when you're doing this, you want to make sure that you heat that cast steel up to around 400 degrees the best you can. Now I used the propane torch starting out. It just didn't seem to be heating it up as well, so I went to MAP gas and tried that, and it didn't work too horrible. I don't think it worked near as good as what a regular torch would, but I'm out of acetylene, so I went with this option. And also I just want to try it out. So you want to preheat, weld, post heat, and then wrap it up. And the biggest thing is you just don't want that cast to cool down too quick. That can cause some cracks in your welds. So it's a pretty simple process, and it's going to be the same process I'm going to use on my truss whenever I weld that to the cast as well. Right now it's just welded to the tube itself. So it's going to be the same thing. It's also going to be the same thing that I used to, if you watched my other video, that I used to mount my high steer Artec arms. So now we'll just sit and wait until it cools down. Okay, so it's all cooled down. The welds look good. no cracking. So what will happen is if this cast cools down quicker than the steel, because they're going to slow it cool down at different temperatures, what will happen is that will cause this weld to crack. And sometimes you can hear it. And you know, so the biggest thing is you just want it to cool down slow. So it looks good. We got that side done as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was very simple to do this. This wasn't hard. The biggest thing is when you're welding the cast, do a pre and post heat and let it cool down slowly. Now you're going to see some people that'll heat this down slowly with just the torch itself, and that's perfectly fine. But a lot of people have been doing it with just a welding blanket, or put a welding blanket and then maybe some insulation or another blanket over top that. With this area being so small, not really concerned about it. I just use a regular welding blanket. Now when I do my truss, I may do a welding blanket and then another blanket or some insulation. We'll just see. It's not a big truss, so I'm not too concerned about that. With 2 welding blankets, that should hold the heat in fairly well. So like I said, the biggest thing is you want to do a pre and post heat. I think everybody says around 400 degrees seems to be on average. And then do your welding. And when you're doing like a truss or something like that, you know, kind of do your welds not too big. For one, especially down at this end, you don't want to do too much and try to warp that tube. Now, especially on your longer trusses, that's going to be a lot more critical, because you have that whole axle tube right there that you're going to be welding along. So on these shorter trusses like this, you don't have to worry about it as much. So there you go. Hope you guys enjoy this. If you have any questions, please let me know, any comments. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and check out our other videos. Thanks for watching.